It's Monday morning. You wake up, check your phone, and see the notification, Government Shutdown, Day 3. You might think, here we go again, and scroll past it. But here's what most people don't realize. Right now, as you're watching this, over 800,000 federal workers just showed up to work without knowing when they'll get paid. National parks are closing their gates. Passport applications are piling up in locked offices. And if you're waiting on a tax refund, a visa approval, or a federal loan, that clock just stopped ticking. This is the second shutdown in just a few months. The last one, it lasted 43 days and became the longest government closure in American history. And this time, it all started because of what happened on a street corner in Minneapolis. I'm going to break down exactly what's happening, why it's different this time, and most importantly, how this shutdown might actually affect your life, whether you realize it or not. Because this isn't just political theater. This is real people, real paychecks, and real consequences playing out right now. Let me take you back to Saturday night, January 31st. The clock is ticking toward midnight. Congress has hours to pass a spending bill to keep the government funded. They've done this dance 1,000 times. Usually at the last second, somebody blinks, a deal gets made, and the lights stay on. Not this time. The breaking point? A shooting in Minneapolis. Federal immigration agents opened fire during a protest, killing 2 people. The details are still emerging, but the political fallout was immediate and explosive. Senate Democrats drew a line in the sand. They demanded reforms to ICE before they'd agreed to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Specifically, they wanted body cameras on all agents and a ban on officers wearing masks during operations. Republicans pushed back. The White House called it hamstringing law enforcement. Conservative members said Democrats were using a tragedy to score political points. And just like that, midnight came and went. No deal, no funding, government shutdown. What's actually shut down right now? Here's the thing people get wrong about shutdowns. It's not like someone flips a switch and the entire government goes dark. This is what they call a partial shutdown, which means some agencies were already funded before this mess started, but the ones that weren't, they're in trouble. Closed or running on fumes? Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, Transportation, Housing and Urban Development, State Department, Treasury. Still operating? TSA and air traffic control. So yes, planes are still flying. Border security and customs. Law enforcement and federal prisons. Emergency disaster response. Social security payments, those checks keep going out. The Postal Service. Your mail isn't stopping. But here's where it gets messy. Who's actually hurt by this? If you're a federal employee in one of those shut-down agencies, you just became a political pawn. About 800,000 workers are either furloughed, meaning sent home without a paycheck, or labeled essential, which means they have to show up and work without a paycheck until this gets resolved. Think about that for a second. You still have rent due, your kids still need to eat, your car payment doesn't pause because Congress can't do its job, and you're expected to just wait. Last shutdown, some workers didn't get paid for 43 days. Food banks near federal buildings saw lines around the block. Security clearances were taking Uber shifts at night just to pay bills. It's not abstract, it's brutal.
What this means for you. Even if you're not a federal worker, this shutdown has tentacles. Traveling soon? Passport processing has stopped for non-emergency cases. If you applied recently and were counting on it arriving in the next few weeks, you might be out of luck. Waiting on a tax refund? The IRS is partially operational, but processing delays are already starting to stack up. Small business owner applying for an SBA loan? That application just went into a freezer. Trying to visit a national park? Many are closed or operating with skeleton crews. No rangers, no visitor centers, and in some cases, gates are locked. Buying a house with an FHA loan? Those approvals just stopped. Expecting federal assistance? Housing vouchers, nutrition programs for low-income families, and other services are starting to slow or halt. The longer this drags on, the wider the ripple effects get. Why this one feels different? We've been through shutdowns before. Some lasted hours, some lasted weeks, but this one has a different energy to it. First, it's the second major shutdown in a matter of months. The last one, which ended in mid-November 2025 after 43 days, left deep scars. People are exhausted. Trust in government is at rock bottom. Second, the trigger issue, immigration enforcement and police accountability, isn't some arcane budget detail. It's emotionally charged, highly partisan, and deeply divisive. There's no easy compromise here. Third, the political stakes are enormous. With elections on the horizon, both parties are calculating what they can afford to give up and what they can't. Nobody wants to look weak. Nobody wants to be the one who caved. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The people making these decisions, the senators, the representatives, the president, they're still getting paid during the shutdown. Their paychecks don't stop. Their health care doesn't pause. The consequences are being absorbed by everyone else. What happens next? Speaker Mike Johnson says the House will vote on a funding package by Tuesday, February 3rd. That's tomorrow. He sounds optimistic, but we've heard that before. The Senate already passed a deal that would fund most major agencies through September, but it only gives Homeland Security 2 weeks of funding while they negotiate ICE reforms. The question is whether the House will accept that or if they'll send it back with changes, restarting the whole cycle. If this gets resolved quickly, federal workers get back pay, services resume, and we all move on until the next budget fight. If it drags on, we're looking at real economic damage. Government contractors don't get back pay. Small businesses that rely on federal customers start to suffer. Consumer confidence drops. And every day this goes on, more people get hurt.
Here's what frustrates people most about government shutdowns. They're completely avoidable. This isn't a natural disaster. This isn't an unexpected crisis. This is a choice made by people who have the power to prevent it but decide not to because they're dug into their positions. And while they're playing political chess, real people are wondering how they're going to buy groceries this week. The Minneapolis shooting was a tragedy that deserves serious attention and accountability. Immigration policy absolutely needs reform. Body cameras and transparency in law enforcement are legitimate concerns. But holding the entire government hostage to force those conversations, that's not governance. That's a hostage situation with 800,000 workers and millions of Americans caught in the middle. What you can do. If this frustrates you, here's what actually matters. Contact your representatives, not with rage, just with reality. Tell them you're paying attention. Tell them shutdowns have consequences. Tell them you expect them to do their jobs even when it's hard. Because the only reason this keeps happening is because they think we're not watching. We are. And if you found this breakdown helpful, share it. The more people who understand what's actually happening, the harder it becomes for politicians to play these games without consequences. This is day 3. Let's hope it doesn't become day 43 again. Stay informed, stay engaged, and let's see if they can figure this out by tomorrow.